Hello and welcome to 7 Minutes of Precision. My name is Sharif, I'm your host, and today my guest is Shane Monsour, the co owner of EM Precision Rifles. Shane, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
How's it going, man?
You know what? It's snowing like crap out of here. I thought for sure we were into spring, and we got like 10 inches over the last 18 hours, so not super
Oh my God.
pumped. Yeah, thought I was going to be out shooting, but I'm a big baby. If there's snow on the ground, I don't go shoot.
Yeah, it did snow here this morning, and I think it's going to snow tomorrow as well. So we'll see how that goes. But it's always like that in the spring.
Yeah, yeah, one last one just to make you mad.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so EM Precision Rifles. Tell us exactly what do you guys do?
Well, it's just me and my business partner, Steve Emblin. We started up about 12 years ago. Honestly, we started it as a joke, kind of as a hobby. Steve had a lathe, and we had a buddy who was a gunsmith. And one day we figured it would be cool to do 5 or 6 rifles a year and pay for our own barrels and things like that. And our first year, we did 88 rifles. It was a lot more than we kind of thought. So Steve and I incorporated, got insurance, put our business together, and we've been doing it now 11, just over 11 years. So we
Wow.
cater primarily to like the PRS market. I think that's a major driver. I don't think everybody who's buying rifles from us shoots PRS, but I mean, as you know, it's a major market driver as to what equipment or configurations or calibers.
Hmm.
So I shoot a lot of PRS and NRL to advertise the company, but that would be, I think, our primary customer base. Obviously, we're building customs. They're a little bit high dollar than some of the factory options that are out there. So you get dedicated shooters who are going
Right.
to the custom gunsmiths for builds. Yeah. So and then we do lightweight hunting rifles. Typically stick to carbon stocks and carbon barrels. We'll use some of the lighter weight chassis, things like that.
Okay.
We try to support Canadian wherever we can. I mean, that was how we founded our company, was being an all Canadian builder. We used Canadian barrels and Canadian actions, Canadian chassis, Canadian triggers. I just found as we got bigger, there was work that we were passing up on if we didn't open ourselves up to some American product lines. But we still
Right.
try to support all the Canadian stuff as often as we can.
Hmm.
So that's kind of, I guess, in a nutshell, what we do. And ELR.
So, oh yeah, LR is not really big in the East. I think it depends, I guess, where because of the space. But in the West, you do have a little
Yeah.
bit more space to reach those ALR distances.
There's certainly a community out there, guys, who are doing it. We built a few rifles for guys out there, and we know several others right out to the East Coast. But you're right,
Hmm.
you guys have significant land challenges as far as finding places, and
Oh
even
yeah.
out here, like here, everybody thinks it's just a barren plateau, but trying to find places where there isn't a house when you're talking 2,000 to 3,000 meters, it does get really difficult to find places. But fortunately, there's a lot of pipeline right of ways. Guys will use those, lots of farmland. But you got to get fairly far out of that Edmonton centric or Calgary centric before you start finding those distances, right?
Yeah, well, we tried here to find space. If you're not talking about like a military shooting range or anything, is the hydroelectric cables, and usually
Mhm.
that's an open strip, and you can get maybe a kilometer and a half. But even then, there are chalets around, and we don't have suppressors in Canada. So then people are complaining, and then you go out, you find the cops waiting for you, and you're like, okay, great.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. No.
uh,
Well, and your CFO is a lot shittier than ours. We've actually got a really good
oh yeah,
CFO out here who's they truly function like a partner to the shooting community versus the oppositional that you guys in Quebec really see.
yeah.
So like that culture difference also makes it a lot nicer. I mean, we have probably, well, we have more center fire matches than the East does as well, with a much lower population, but it comes to access and regulatory controls that your provinces have in place, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's your CFO, the only CFO who supports the community in Canada. Maybe I don't know, maybe Manitoba or Saskatchewan, but I think Alberta is the one mostly supporting the shooting community.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I think ours is certainly further ahead of everybody. They've
Hmm.
definitely had conflict in the years past with the
Yeah,
community, but the most recent turnover about 8 years ago has actually been really, really good for us. I
yeah,
think the provincial government in Saskatchewan has a fairly open mindset as well. I think they're doing things a lot better. But yeah, beyond Alberta, Saskatchewan, it's amazing how a national firearms act can be enacted so differently.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. All right. And for your rifles, what have you been seeing over? I mean, 12 years is a long time, so that's amazing. But how have you been the sport seen the sport changed over the last 12 years? Maybe what kind of calibers people were shooting back then and shooting now? What kind of equipment? I think we're like in a time where we have all the fancy stuff,
Yeah.
so you probably have a good vision of that.
You know, it's interesting because we certainly see a lot of trends and we've seen it evolve. Like, I'll be honest, getting into it 12 years ago, Steve and I were talking about this the other day because, like, Steve was my mentor. I shot three gun, I did that type of stuff. I got into long range, and Steve took me under his wing and kind of taught me the ropes. But back then, the resources, whether it be the internet, was so little for your load development, your data. I mean, we all started off on 308s. I remember the old Palm Pilot pocket computer using the Night Force solvers and the Horus solvers, and input equaled outputs, and none of us knew how to use it. And it's changed to the point now where a brand new shooter with a basic set of fundamentals can go buy a $2,000 rifle off the shelf and a free phone app and be hitting 1,000 yards consistently. Like it's
Yeah.
really, we've watched that evolution in the last 12 years, and you see the technology, whether it comes from like the cutting edge applied ballistics, the Chase Strouds and the Paul. Oh my God, I forgot his fucking last name, and he's gonna kill me. Phillips, but like those guys and the testing the data, and you see like, well, why would a guy have to shoot 6,000 yards? What's the purpose of that? But what we see is that data transitioning down, and we're seeing more modern bullet designs, more modern case designs, more consistent powders. The solvers are amazing. I've been
Yeah.
using ChatGPT for like load development experiments, and I'm actually really blown away by how quickly it could focus down your starting points and how
Really?
predictable it is. Again, inputs versus outputs, and I've got a guy mentoring me on it. He's gotten really quite into it, and it's predicting things out very accurately. Gordon's reloading tool and quick load, like we have all these tools available to us that we can do things that we never would have thought was reasonable or possible. I mean, now we talk about a mile like it used to be 3,000, right? Like 1,000 yards is easy. We're doing that in PRS from shitty positions with little 6 millimeters.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to see how it's evolved. But year to year, we always see. I mean, especially since PRS really became a thing, because like we were building guns before PRS existed. And don't get me wrong, there were guys running matches, they just didn't all fall under this umbrella of PRS, but there was tactical
Hmm.
matches and precision rifle matches and sniper team matches. Like it was cool, but you just saw a lot of 308. I remember shooting, got to be 10 years ago. I did a team shoot and I was shooting a 6x47 before six
Okay.
millimeter was a thing. Everyone was shooting 308. Me and my partner both had 647s. We had a lot of fun doing it, but again, getting out to 700, 1,000, we just weren't seeing the impacts on the steel. It wasn't as reliable. We went back to 6.5s. We
Yeah.
saw PRS go from 308 to 6.5, right? The Creedmoor came in, and again, it gets a lot of
Well, because
crap,
you
but
can't get that much. I mean, the ballistics of a 308 is not as flat as a 6.5, and at
yeah.
800, you're depends on your powder load. You're hitting transonic, and it's all over the place.
Yep, yeah, exactly. And all of a sudden we got the 6.5. And granted, guys were shooting 260, 260 AI, the 6.5 by 55. But the Creedmoor came out and it just basically aligned everything from your overall length to your bullet profile to your lead in your chamber to the case designs, run out of a magazine functionally. Like it just brought everything together, and
Hmm.
it made it very attainable for guys to go buy factory match ammo, have really high expectations. And again, you're getting to 1,000 pretty easily with a 6.5 now. I ended up going to the 6.5 by 47, shot that for a long time. We saw a couple of seasons of 6.5s. Then all of a sudden we saw the 6.5 SOM thing, right? The
Yeah.
George Gardner GA Precision come out with that 6.5 SOM, and that was the flavor. I shot that for two seasons. Then all of a
Short
sudden it
action
was
ultra
fast six
mag.
millimeters. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but those are barrel burners. How many rounds can you get through a barrel before
Well,
it
especially
needs to
under
be
match
changed?
conditions. Yeah, like I would honestly say it's not far off of the six Creedmoor, which
Oh
is kind
yeah.
of where everyone went to next, right? All of a sudden it went
Hmm.
from running 140 grain at 3,150 to running 105 grain at 3,100. Then a year later, two
Your
years later, all of a sudden,
dashers and all the other
yeah.
6 millimeter calibers.
And right now we're seeing the trend of slowing things down. So now it's 2,700, 2,750, running an
Hmm.
appropriate bullet weight in whatever you're shooting, a 6 or 6.5. I jumped on the 25 Creedmoor bandwagon a long time ago, like 6 years ago. And it was a supply chain thing. And now all of a sudden you're seeing the 2547, the 25 Creedmoor, the 25 BRAs. You're seeing more guys do 25 variants and taking those 135s at like 27, 2,800. Um, I see it trend all the time, and I see Canada's always a little bit behind the States. You start to see all the
Of
winners
course.
on one season, and then all of a sudden Canada follows suit with that type of stuff as we see podium finishes and internet stuff. And I'll be honest, I'm not a believer that the calibers make that much of a difference versus the rifleman. I'm a
for sure.
mid-pack shooter. It doesn't matter what I shoot. It doesn't really seem to change my score. I did the slow 6 millimeter the last 2 seasons and absolutely hated it. I'm back to a 2,900 foot, uh, 25 cal, and that's kind of where I play with all my calibers.
Is it because everyone is trying to have less recoil, so they're getting the most flat caliber with the less recoil, the less speed?
That's
Is it
that's the
that or?
conversation, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, like guys will say, or you have a little bit more time to watch your trace go in and read that target or get back on target. But I hate to say it, if you break down 200 feet per second at a 600-meter target, we're talking point 2, point 3 seconds. Most people's
Hmm.
reaction times are over that just in your brain processing speed. I think
Right.
guys maybe get comfortable with it, and there's been this trend. And again, I'm a mid-pack shooter, so don't take my word for Bible, right? I just have seen what's worked for me across multiple platforms and multiple disciplines. And I find 29 to 29.50 is consistent. It's reasonable on barrels. You weight up your bullet or weight down your bullet to kind of land in that space in the caliber you're playing with. And they just seem to perform really well. I went back to my 25 Creedmoor last season for NRL and I shot it way better than I did PRS with my 6 mil. That's just kind of what I'm seeing, even in our enablers, running a 400
Hmm.
grain solid. We're running 29 to 29.50, right? And yeah, we can hot rod them and go a little faster, but they just seem to be harder to manage, both in felt recoil as well as carbon buildup, velocity migration. And you start trying to push anything over 3,000, and they just get hard on barrels. And if you end up with this really short period running something like a 28 nozzler where you load develop for 150 or 200 rounds, break your barrel in, you get like 500, 600 good rounds out of it. Well, if you want to do any low development, if you want to practice with it, if you want to play with it at all, it's just too short. Like I ran that
Yeah.
33XC, and most guys are changing them around 700, 800 rounds. Like the barrel would break in at 150. You do a little load development, and I ended up shooting bad barrels at 2 King and 2 miles over the last 6 years. It's not fun. Whereas my 375 is going to go on to its third season this year.
Yeah, you definitely want to have some time with your rifle and the barrel, and make sure you have your load development right before you have to change the barrel.
Well, and do what's
Okay.
right for you. Don't just look at the internet. Do what's right for
Yeah.
you, what feels good. Try different things, right? Like I've had guys go from 3,100 feet per second down to 2,700 feet per second on a 6 mil, and they'll find where they're comfortable, right? Don't just take everything off the internet for the word, because everyone's going to have their preferences. Like I prefer a slightly lighter gun, going a little bit faster. All these guys are moving to 22, 24 pound rifles and slow 6 millimeters. Lots of them
Yeah.
out shoot me though, so.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let me ask you this. If someone wants to build a rifle with you, what is the process they do to get their rifle from the beginning all the way till the
Oh, we're a huge pain in the ass, unfortunately. I
end?
don't run a web store. We don't take credit card or anything like that. We've always maintained the business that we wanted to be connected to the project.
Hmm.
I come from like professionally project management and technical sales, so it kind of translates into my side of the business as well. Um, Steve doesn't have time for rework. Like we both have full-time jobs outside of EM. We can't be reworking things or fixing things that we screwed up or didn't listen to. So generally, our website's not great, but you can go and you can see the major brands that we're dealing with, a few sample photos. It'll link you to our social media, which is what we update constantly.
Hmm.
But I want you to phone. An email is good, and in the end, I'm going to make you email me anyways with all your info so I can do an invoice. But I like a phone call. I like talking to guys because, again, with so much information out there, you want to make sure that you're asking the right qualifying questions. You're getting them into the right caliber that they want to shoot. You're getting into the right weight of gun. And we're kind of particular. If we perceive potentially a concern that the rifle's not going to shoot or isn't going to perform up to the customer's expectations, we politely decline and we refer out a couple of other guys. Um, but again, we're part-time. We don't have time for rework. We stand by everything we build. We want to make sure it's going out right and the customers are having a good experience. And honestly, that's why we got into it, was to provide a more economical or value based solution for guys getting out. Like everybody can go and spend $6,000 on a rifle, but maybe you don't need that as your start, right? And
Yeah.
and as a sales guy, I'm typically not the one upselling. I'm typically the guy pushing to the more value options, not cheap, but the ones that are going to do the work for you at a cost that's reasonable, right?
Hmm.
I was an oil patch guy, and I've been through the ups and downs, right? You watch $1.70 at the pump, and it gets frustrating. Now we're looking at tariffs on bullets and stuff, and I mean we're
Oh yeah.
already paying 80 cents for a burger. Like when I started reloading, I reloaded 308 for 52 cents. Now
Oh my.
the primer's 24 cents. It's absolutely astronomical how the cost of shooting has changed. So guys need to get a perceived value out of the experience. Otherwise, we're not going to have people in the community.
And the prices go up and they never go down. Recently, when the primer prices went almost 100% up, I think it was like $50 for 1,000, and now it's like $100 or 115 even. It's not going down anymore.
220, we're paying 220, 230, even
Oh
through
my god.
the dealers that we deal with. Yeah, like primers for the last 6 months, year maybe, have been pushing 180 to $230 per thousand. And I got primers in my bench that still say $32 per thousand on them. I've got a pound of powder that still says $44 on it, and now we're paying $100 for a pound of Retumbo or H1000. Like it's at some point it's going to be a problem. So we're constantly looking for solutions where we can be a little bit more economical. And
For
part of
sure.
that is not taking credit cards, so we don't have the fees. We work out of our garage. We don't have a shop and overhead. We carry the necessary things. Like we do stock a couple $100,000 worth of inventory actions and barrels to try to keep the process going quickly for guys. But yeah, it's getting tough. I mean, we certainly see ups and downs in the political landscape and the outlook. Whether guys want to drop $4,000 to $6,000 on a rifle plus optic plus reloading, it's not something that the average fella kind of jumps into.
For sure.
So like I say, we work with Curtis. We had them build and brand an action for us that presented most of the technical merits of the Valor, but about $700 less. Now
Hmm.
you've got your barrel for the same cost it would have cost you as an action, right? And that was kind of where we wanted to push that. And it's been good. Like we sell 2 to 1 pulses to Valors now. So I think see people see that perceived value, and we're currently in works to have that produced in Canada, so we can again
Awesome.
drop costs and avoid any potential tariffs. As far as
Hmm.
I know right now, gun parts are not going to be tariffed.
We'll see.
Yeah,
I have heard nothing but good comments about your rifles and the rifles you and your partner built. So it's good for you and good for your business.
thank you.
Um, and yeah, thank you so much for being with us and chatting with us and telling a little bit about how your business runs. And I will add your contact email and phone number so people can actually reach out to you.
Thank you very much, Sharif. Appreciate you having us on.
Thank you so much.